welcome to Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka 3-Piece Combo, and today we have a great show that we're going to cover. Of course, we got Mr. Alf Alfredo, or Alf Artiaga. How you doing, my friend?
Good.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And of course, Manny's producing the show, Mr. Super Producer. But we have a really fun fight coming up this Saturday. UFC 261, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 2. And it's the first fight back when we actually have the crowd. It's really giving a buzz to the fight. If you looked at the or the press conference, the crowd was in it. They were booing, they were cheering. Chad Johnson was there. Ocho Cinco, he was there asking questions from Masvidal. So it was a very live atmosphere, and it was fun to see. I'm super excited to get this fans back. I can't wait for somebody to get knocked out just to hear that pop again. How do you feel about the fans coming back to these events?
Oh, I'm excited. We've already had a couple of fights, but it hasn't been the same. It's been inside of stadiums with social distancing, and like at the Hard Rock, they had almost 20,000 fans, but that's a stadium that holds 80,000. And if you learned how they laid out that fight for the Canelo fight, people were like in the club area. They were in the club seats. There was very few, only family and friends were ringside. So it's not the same. So this is going to be very different. And we're headed toward big crowds coming very soon.
I'm so excited for these crowds, man. I mean, honestly, I'm going to miss the sound of hearing a nice body shot or a good leg kick, that thump, that crack that you hear on those shots. And I'm going to really miss the details. Sometime with the championship fights, there's a level of just anxiety when there's an absolute silence, like with that Ngannou versus Miocic fight. You could hear a pin drop before those combinations started, right? So it's going to be, I'm sad to see the fans go away, but I'm really happy to see them come back as well. You need that crowd pop. It's more money for the fighters. It's better for the sport anyways, and I'm just happy to see it back. But let's get to this epic main event because we have Miami's very own Gamebred, Jorge Masvidal, taking on Kamaru Usman, who's putting on one of the best resumes at welterweight of all time. And this is a very fun fight. It's a rematch, of course. Usman, or Masvidal per se, took the fight on 6 days' notice, covering for Gilbert Burns in the last fight. And it was kind of a stalemate, right? And if you look at what the recent body of work for Kamaru Usman has been, he's been putting people out. He's been wearing them down, and he's been doing his thing. But for Masvidal, for some reason, he wasn't able to do that thing. And maybe he took the fight on short notice too. He wanted to play it safe. But PR Crazy 53, I appreciate you joining the show. He said, I like when they have no fans because you can hear the coaches yelling. You hear DC and John Anik. I love DC and John Anik, man. John Anik's definitely my favorite commentator. He's just phenomenal with his calls. He's just so into it. So awesome. I love John Anik. I'm going to miss hearing them scream as well. But getting back to this main event, a lot at stake now, right? Because it's the second and probably the final chance for Jorge Masvidal to get this shot in what has been a legendary long career, starting in the backyards of Miami, fighting with Kimbo Slice, and now he's made it to the big stage, right? He's fighting for the welterweight championship. He already has the BMF title, whether you like it or not. It's still something fun, and he's on his way to becoming a big star. But how do you see this one breaking down? Do you think that if Jorge Masvidal gets this win, that he puts himself, or I'm sorry, do you think this rematch is going to be? How do you think this is different from last year's fight?
Well, it's different in that he had a complete camp now, right? His body's going to be a little bit different because last time, if we believe him, okay, and I don't know if we're going to believe Jorge Masvidal, but he says that he kind of crashed down 20 pounds inside of a month. Is that true? I don't know. If he did do that for his last fight, then of course, then he obviously didn't have the juice to go 5 rounds with Kamaru Usman or win a decision against Kamaru Usman or press a pace against Kamaru Usman. So, yeah, obviously it will be very different. It's essentially, do you believe what Jorge Masvidal said about the run-up to the last fight? If you do, then yeah, this should be very different.
I think there's a lot of things that have changed from the last time out and kind of what's going on now. The first thing, like you said, you touched on it, the cardio, right? The 22-pound weight cut that he has to do. And doing that in 6 days is a lot on your body. On top of that, you have the jet lag. Now he's coming in. He's in Florida, so he's in his home state. He's traveling, maybe 6 hours, 7 hours to Jacksonville from Miami. it's only a 7-pound weight cut. If you watched the interview yesterday with, I think, Max Kellerman and Stephen A, he was only 7 pounds overweight. So he's probably, 177 pounds now. That's a much easier weight cut than 22 pounds. On the other end, though, Usman's striking has seemed to improve, right? He was able to put Gilbert Burns down, and he showed that he's able to strike now, especially in his last couple of fights, getting a couple of TKOs, going back to that Covington fight as well. But I think that's going to be something that we might see Usman use a little bit more, but I'm really doubtful. I think he'll probably play a little more safe. But I think this rematch is a lot different more for Masvidal than it is for Usman. I think he's going to be able to have his bursts more. The way Masvidal operates is he'll kind of wait, burst. He'll throw that 2-3-piece combo, right? And then he'll go ahead and he'll get his knockout by timing things really well and just exploding. I think he'll be able to do that more in this fight. I think his takedown defense is going to be a little bit better, right? He's going to be able to know how to position himself in the cage, not to keep his back up against the cage, get himself in those clinch positions where Usman can lock his hands, take him down. But I also think that a familiarity with each other is going to be something that's going to be really interesting as well, because now they've already spent this time in the octagon together, and they kind of have, all right, I know what your strength is. Gamebred knows what Usman's strength is like now, right? He knows how strong he is. He can target. Maybe he'll get a 190-pound guy to wrestle with so he can get used to that weight on him. But if Jorge is able to get this fight done, and if he's able to get this win, do you think this is going to propel him to Conor McGregor level stardom?
Absolutely. And you can almost guarantee that that's something that Dana White's going to actually want to talk about. If he wins this fight, naturally, he probably shouldn't fight Conor McGregor. He doesn't deserve a title shot at 170. He hasn't done anything at 170. But that's probably what's going to happen. So, yeah, in one way, for the UFC purists, it would be a bad thing if Jorge Masvidal wins. In another way, it's actually a good thing because it's going to get a bunch of eyeballs on the sport. It's going to get a bunch of eyeballs. The next time he fights, it's going to be a big deal. So, yeah, a win by Jorge Masvidal. The circus is in town. Everybody likes to see a circus. We talked about this last week, and right or wrong, Jorge Masvidal is kind of a circus now. Great fighter, maybe Hall of Fame, but, to be honest with you, he probably doesn't deserve this shot. But if he wins, he gets to talk all as much as he wants and gets to make any fight he wants.
Absolutely. I mean, to put it in perspective, what he's done over the course of his career, he's had some tough losses, right? Going back to, I think 2015, that Al Iaquinta fight, he clearly won the fight. He stuffed all of his takedowns. I think that was 2015's robbery of the year based on one of the, I think MMA Junkie did that. But, he gets robbed in a lot of fights, to be honest, as well. He has the capability to finish fights. He hasn't been stopped before. I think all of his losses have been by decision. So it's not like he's somebody who's seen the canvas or had his lights go out and it's on the opposite end of somebody else's highlight reel. But he has that ability to become a star, because even if you looked at, like I was talking about the press conference today, everybody's on Masvidal's side, and he has the ability to get these quick, quirky comebacks, right? If they're jaw-jacking at each other, he's able to talk back really well. He's sly. He knows how to kind of maneuver himself. He has that Godfather-esque personality behind him. So I think if he gets his belt, man, it's going to be like you said, it's going to be the second coming of Conor McGregor. We're going to have another star in the UFC, and I think it's going to be great because it's going to bring more eyes, and it's going to be great for Miami too, because, hey, Gamebred is Miami's production. So let's get to the X and O's of this fight just a little bit. What do you think Jorge has to do to get this fight done?
Well, he's already seen how Kamaru Usman responds to his punches, right? So he's going to have to go to school on them, and he's going to have to try to do something different. He's going to have to do something different as far as he's going to have to be first. He can't counter Kamaru Usman, because if he's going to counter Kamaru Usman, he's going to let him close to him. And if Kamaru Usman is fighting face-to-face with Jorge Masvidal, he's winning this fight. And not only is he winning this fight, he might run the clock out for 5 rounds and just skunk him 5-0. So he's going to have to go to school on the last fight and remember everything that Kamaru Usman did to break up his timing and to get inside of his punches. So he's actually going to have to box. And he says he's been working on his hands even more than usual. He's going to need him. He's going to need him because he's going to have to fight a fight on the outside. I think this is, not to go really, really old school, but there was a time where a great wrestler, or let's call him a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, and BJ Penn, he was considered absolutely unbeatable till he fought Frankie Edgar. And Frankie Edgar decided, you know what I'm going to do with this guy? I'm going to box him. And by the third round, BJ Penn was in a boxing match. He ended up losing a boxing match to Frankie Edgar. That's what Jorge Masvidal has to do. He has to change the sport inside of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, you put it beautifully, absolutely beautifully said. But that's perfect because he's going to have to keep this a stand-up fight. If he gets taken down, it's going to be hard for him to get up. It's going to be hard for him to get away from the clinch if he gets his back up against the cage. So using his hands and really avoiding those long exchanges with Usman is going to be one of the keys because he's not going to want to present his hips. He's going to want to, back up, get in, get out, right? Not do anything too drastic. Don't stay in the pocket for too long. Just get in and get out. You saw with the first fight, as soon as he threw that first leg kick, Usman caught it, and then he got the takedown right away. So I think he's going to have to probably avoid using the kicking, which I loved your point, which you said, just making it appear a boxing match, not even a kickboxing match, a boxing match. Avoid the takedowns, circle away from the pressure of Usman, and then counter and use those counters to keep him on his back foot and then try to enter range that way by backing him up because he's not as good at the takedowns if he's not able to pressure you, which is something that'll be interesting to see if he uses that jab effectively. But let's get into
there's a new variable in this fight that there wasn't in the last one. There's a crowd now, and you got to think that this crowd is behind Masvidal. 100%. Masvidal lands a two-punch combination. That crowd's going to ooh and ah. And trust me, judges hear those things. So if a judge is hearing 3 rounds of ooh and a 9, who do you think he has ahead on the scorecards? So Masvidal's going to have to do that. He's going to have to play to the judges too. He's going to have to look good while he's trying to change the fight into a boxing match.
I think he could do it, man. I really do think that he could do it. It's going to be interesting. And if I was betting, Usman's probably the betting, heavy betting favorite just because of what he's done and his body of work. But he has all the tools. He's definitely at one of the best teams. He's over there with ATT. He's training with some of the top guys. He has a great coach in Mike Brown, and he didn't have his coach last time. That's something we have to remember as well. He didn't have his head coach going into his championship fight. Think about if the Miami Heat went into a championship game without Coach Spoelstra, right? It's very similar. Yeah. He didn't have his head coach backing him up. That's something also that you want to think about getting into this fight. But as far as Usman goes, he said he wants to finish. He has unfinished business with Masvidal, and he wants to finish him. Do you think Usman can actually finish Masvidal? Because nobody's been able to do that.
You just said it. Nobody's been able to do it now. Usually, this is the way it works, right? At the end of your career is when you do get finished. So could it happen? Absolutely. This is the right man to do it if he's going to do it. But it's going to take some serious mistakes and probably some lazy fighting from Jorge Masvidal to allow himself to be in a position to be finished. Because where can he finish him? I don't think he finishes him, standing up. Because as good as Colby Covington is with his hands, that was just an accumulation of punches that dropped him. Masvidal, believe it or not, I believe it is on par and maybe even better than Colby with his hands. Because I like the way. I like the way he throws his punches much better than Colby. Colby paused with too many punches. Masvidal has some stiff punches. So, yeah, I don't see it. But if it happens, you can't be surprised because this is usually the way it happens. It happens at the end of a long career with a lot of rounds, a lot of fights, and all of a sudden, oh, look, he got finished. But for him to get finished, he's going to have to make some serious mistakes and find himself basically on his back.
Yeah, I think the only way he gets finished is ground and pound. I don't think there's a way that Usman gets a knockout punch. I think Masvidal, like I said, he's too slick. He's fought guys like Stephen Thompson, Darren Till. He's fought some of the best strikers out there, right? And he hasn't gone down. So I don't think Usman, with as much respect I have to his wrestling game, his jab, his ability to use those in combination as a full mixed martial arts fighter, I don't think the striking aspect of Usman's game is just quite there yet to put him out. If he does, like I said, it's going to probably be ground and pound. And I don't even see him getting ground and pounded. I think Jorge was good enough off his back to stay defensive, at least if anything, just to buy him the round, just to get to the end of the round. I would think he's defensive enough. Well, let's get into our predictions, man, because or for Usman, how do you think Usman has to get it done?
Well, he has to close distance, right? And he has to get inside of the punches that Masvidal is going to throw. You got to figure that Masvidal is going to try to employ a stiff jab. He can't paw with the jab, because if he paws with the jab, Usman's going to grab him. So it's going to have to be a stiff jab. So he's going to have to actually throw a jab that's actually designed to hurt Kamaru Usman. It can't be a jab to find distance or to find, the range. It can't be one of those pawing jabs. It has to be stiff, because if not, Usman will grab him and will bring him in close. And that's essentially where the fight lies. And that's where he can just pile up the points and pile up the rounds, put him away, and win the fight going away.
Yeah, he's gonna have to use his pressure as his main key, right? His pressure, his cardio, doing the things that he's done just on everybody and wearing everybody down. That's what he's gonna have to really do. Wear Jorge Masvidal down. With any striker, the knockout power decreases and the percentage decreases of a knockout as rounds go by, right? You'll still have that ability if you catch the shot, if you time it well, etc. But that power kind of tends to go down a little bit. So I think if he wears Masvidal down, gets him up against the cage like he does last time, but this time maybe secure some more takedowns, get those hands locked together, and not so maybe not so much foot stomps. And although it did win him the fight last time, but I do think that
and he's gonna have to. He's also gonna have to fight him with a 3/4 stance, because he can't shoot on Masvidal, because he has to avoid the knees, right? So he's essentially gonna have to cut off the ring. He's gonna have to use some boxing skills. He's gonna have to cut off the ring, use his footwork to just essentially suffocate Masvidal's game plan, and then just get inside, do your work in there. If the fight's boring, good for the people that say that it's boring. He'll hold up the title belt at the end of the 5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his job to lose a fight. I was watching the GSP Joe Rogan podcast one, and he was saying during his title reign, some of his fights were, boring, quote unquote, but it's not his job to go and lose the title fight. It's Jorge's job to go and get that title and get into PR Crazies 53. I appreciate you again, man. Usman win by TKO in the 5th round or decision. Jorge wins by TKO or KO. He thinks Usman by decision. I think Usman decision is probably the most likely thing that we're gonna get, right? If I said, if I was a betting man, I think that's probably the way it's gonna go. So let's get into predictions, man, because this is a big fight. Like I said, it's a rematch, so it's going to be a little different, especially because they didn't do as much in the first fight. It's not like a John Jones-Gustafsson fight where the first fight was a war and the second fight's trash. The first fight was kind of garbage. So I think this fight has a little bit more to live up to. I think this fight will live up to that ability. I think Usman is going to want to come out a little bit more strong, show that he's an actual dominant champion, not that he's just, stomping feet and stuff like that. And if he does that, if you put a star down, another star is born. So I think this is a big, big opportunity for Usman to get this win. Like I said, if I'm a betting man, I think Usman gets it done. I would love for Jorge to get it done. I think if he does get it done, it'll probably be 1st round, 2nd round knockout, countering that takedown or just countering overall and catching Usman, maybe countering that jab that Usman likes to use and getting him and then knocking him out. But I think overall, I think probably Usman gets it done.
Yeah, it's a tall order, right, for Jorge Masvidal. It just is. I don't have the betting odds in front of me, but I'm is he good value? He's good value because he has good hands. But yeah, man, it's such a tall order. I keep going back to that Colby fight with Kamaru Usman, thinking Kamaru Usman could be had because of what I saw in that Colby fight. Man, I really do believe, and we talked about this on a previous show, I think he went out of his way to fight Colby's fight and beat him at his own fight. I think he went to school on that. I don't think he's going to repeat those mistakes. I don't think there's a chance in hell he's going to stand up with Jorge Masvidal and say, I'm the better striker than you are. I'm a better striker than you are. He's not going to do that. I think he's going to have a good game plan. Jorge's going to have to get lucky. He's going to have to counter a shoot. He's going to have to counter a step, maybe – I don't know, maybe get him moving in the wrong direction and hit him with a hook. He's going to have to get kind of lucky. Usman's going to have to make a mistake. I think he's at the top of his game. You got to say Usman wins this fight by decision. If Jorge has his moments, good for him, because then he'll make some fights going forward. It'll just mean that he's not of championship caliber, but is he a main event caliber? Like you put him in the ring in the octagon with Colby with that draw crowd? Yeah.
Colby
put him in the or Connor or put it. or Edwards. Maybe that's what's in the future. So I think Masvidal, to say that he has nothing to lose is, it's a little bit too coy. But he really doesn't have anything to lose if he looks good. Now, if he gets smashed inside of 2 rounds, that's a problem. But if he looks good in 5 rounds and he loses, maybe wins a round, maybe wins 2 rounds, yeah, the legend moves on.
Yeah, exactly. If he can at least stay competitive in this fight and show that he can go toe-to-toe with one of the greatest welterweights of all time, he showed that he's still a great fighter, right? Maybe you're not the best at this current era, but you're still one of the best fighters. And like he said, he wants to be remembered as the most violent fighter. And I think he's doing a pretty good job of putting a violent resume on the board. But getting to who I think is going to win just a little bit more, right? I think Jorge is it's a lot easier for him to lose this fight than it is for him to win this fight, right? Usman has a lot smaller path or path to lose the fight, but he has a bigger path to win this fight. So I think that's what goes into this fight. Getting to the odds, some of the odds are really, really crazy. Not crazy, but minus 345 for Usman is the best you're going to get. But you see as low as minus 465 for Usman. But you also see Jorge Masvidal as high as 363. So some high odds there. And getting into the press conference that happened a little bit earlier, Chad Ochocinco asked Masvidal, he's like, hey, I'm a Miami man. You're a Miami man. I want to know, man to man, is this a hometown lock? Like, can I bet on you and guarantee my money? And Chad Johnson, he's about his money. He looked Gamebred in his eye, and Gamebred looked him back. He's like, hey, man to man, soul to soul, I'm going to end this man. And he said he's going to do it. So I would love to see Masvidal win this fight. But it's going to be a great fight. I think regardless who wins, we're going to see a pretty fun fight.
This is a great
fight on the card, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a great matchup in the sense that it's technical versus the art, right? So one guy's going to be really, really technical and by the book. That's Kamaru Usman. And the other guy has to be kind of artistic in Jorge Masvidal. He's going to have to find the right combination, the right movement. He's going to have to get himself into the right position, move Kamaru Usman into the right position with a feint or with a fake, and then land that punch. So one guy has to be an artist. The other guy just has to do his job. So that's why it's such a great matchup. And in that case, and since we were picking the guys, I'm going to pick the guy that has to do the job, right? So Usman by decision, I think. And I will agree with this. I think that's the only way he wins this fight. I think Usman wins this fight by decision, being technical, being better than Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal cannot win a decision because if it is a decision, it's because Usman made it so. He has to win by knockout. So I think it's one or the other. Usman by decision or Masvidal by a knockout.
And getting to Cap for Life's comment, wow, no faith in Masvidal. The guy cut weight with how many weeks notice? This time he's ready. I'm 100% agree. I think his chances last fight to win that fight is probably like 5%. I think his chances this time is probably 30 to 35%, right? He has not a little more than a puncher's chance because he has sound takedown defense. He's shown that he's able to keep himself off of the mat, and I think his takedown defense is going to be a little bit more there. Hey, man, like I said, I hope he wins. I would love for him to too, but if I had to bet some money on it, I would go ahead and put it on Usman just because the path to victory is there. If you look at, recency bias, Jan Blachowicz fight versus Izzy Adesanya. Izzy Adesanya is an amazing striker, one of the best of all time. Was barely able to get taken down at 185, but at 205, maybe a little bit heavier. Size difference might have played a little difference on that, but he still was able to get taken down, and the path to victory was just easier for John. He didn't have to go out there and hurt Izzy. He just had to take him down. I think maybe that's just what it is. Usman can play it safe and win this fight. Masvidal can't play it safe and win this fight. He has to put himself in danger.
Exactly.
But let's get into this epic co-main event because 3 title fights on this card. Wow, they definitely stacked this card. And it's a great main card overall. We have Magnum Zhang Weili coming off the best female fight of all time in history.
Maybe the best fight of all time.
It could be. I was like so happy because watching tape for these fights, you have Zhang Weili who fought Joanna, right? You have Rose Namajunas who fought Joanna twice. You have Thug Rose who fought Joanna. So I got to watch a whole lot of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and her striking is just so good to watch. She's just such a good kickboxer. And I watched a lot of Joanna tape this weekend as well as getting all these other female fighters. But Zhang Weili stepping in, defending her strawweight title against strawweight, right? Yeah, definitely against Thug Rose Namajunas, who had, I think her last win was against Jessica Andrade. in that
I
last
believe so.
Usman
Yeah.
fight, right? I think that was the
Yeah.
last fight they had. But this is an excellent fight as well, and this is a fight that could end up being the fight of the night. I mean, we have a couple of fights on this card that could be, but I think this is probably one of the locks to get to the fight of night. But let's get into this one because this is a fun one. There's a little bit of heat on this matchup, right? Thug Rose, when she won the title, she was like, "Let's all love each other, let's all hug each other." All this
Yeah. Now
stuff.
she wants to end communism.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know where this came from. Like I don't know if she's just trying to get
Yeah.
eyes on her, do the whole Cubby Covington thing, and then whatever about politics. I
Yeah.
don't really care. But go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for it, man. Like you want to sell a
Anything.
fight? You know, she's a superhero now. So, I'm a huge fan of the 3 challengers and the 3 title fights. And I'm afraid I could have a bad night on Saturday night because I think these guys, the 3 are underdogs for a reason. Doug Rose, Zhang Weili, what a fight! I'm so excited for that fight.
Yeah, I mean this one's relatively close, or not as close, but relatively close on the odds. If you're looking at it, it's plus 175 for Thug Rose. You get minus 186 for Wei Li Zhang. So I think this is going to be a close fight. I think we could have a potential another war if Rose's chin is able to hold up. But let's get into the striking of this because they're great strikers. Who do you think has the better striking out of these two?
Wow, it's a tough one, right? Because the last time she fought Zhang Weili, when she fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk, although she's calling herself Joanna Champion now, although she hasn't been champ in a while,
Yeah.
but Joanna bounces. She bounces on the tips of her toes. She steps with her punches. She's so skilled. Then you saw at the end of that fight what her face looked like, and you're talking about a girl that actually bangs. Okay, I don't know if Rose wants to actually get into exchanges with Wang Jili. So I don't know. I don't see the path. If this is the type of fight that she wants to fight, if she's actually going to stand up with her, she's going to have to be technical. And if it's boring, great, but she's going to have to outpoint her. I don't think you want to slug it out with the champion here. And I don't know. She could get hurt in this one. It's a rough fight, I think. It's a rough fight. I don't see her finishing Zhang Weili. I just do not see it happening. So she's going to have to win a decision on her feet because I don't think she wants to take it to the ground. So she's going to have to do a lot of what Joanna did and just not get hit. So she's going to have to dance through the raindrops. I think she's a decided underdog in this fight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely live underdog, but for sure decided. Zhang Weili is just absolutely masterclass of a fighter. If you look at her just overall, she's a phenomenal striker. And let's say you want to go take her down 100% on the takedown defense. But I think for Rose, if she wants to get into this fight, I think she might want to take this fight to the ground because we see in the last fight against Joanna, Zhang's kind of slowed down a little bit in that 3rd and 4th round, right? She got a little bit of a second win in the 5th, but that's because she kind of hurt Joanna, so she got maybe the adrenaline got pumping. But I think for Thug Rose, she's gonna want to actually just get on Zhang, wear her down, and get her cardio tested because I don't think her cardio don't let me not say that. Her cardio is phenomenal. She's great, right? She fought Joanna 5 rounds, but she's shown to slow down over those 5 rounds. So I think for Rose, getting into those clinch situations, trying to take her down and at least just wear on her for the first couple rounds before you actually get into those exchanges is going to be really key for her. But how do you think Rose has to get this done?
She's going to have to almost the same thing that we talked about with Jorge Masvidal. She can't paw with Zhang Weili because if she paws with her and she throws these soft, pawing, probing punches, Zhang Weili's going to pull him down and then bring counters on over the top of him. So, that's a recipe for disaster, really. So she's going to have to employ a stiff jab. So we're back to what Jorge Masvidal had to do. That's the only way Zhang Weili, is going to respect Thug Rose and not actually try to run her over. So if she employs a stiff jab, she could change the tempo of the fight. And if she changes the tempo, she can dictate the tempo. And if she dictates the tempo, she can win a decision. I don't think she can finish Zhang Weili. So I think her path is to win a decision. That's the way she does it. She's going to have to establish it. And I thought about establish it from the beginning of the fight.
Yeah, she's gonna have to really focus on making the fight dictated at her pace. Um, if she goes in, she tries to exchange with Zhang Weili, she's gonna get hurt, right? I think she might have the power to stun Weili, right? Because Weili's shown that she had a stiff chin and she's she's able to stand up and take some shots. I think if she's able to use that power and maybe keep those shots fewer and far in between, that would be a little bit more better of a strategy for her, right? Get her or get Weili chasing her and counter and use those power shots a little bit more. Like I said, getting the fight in as a real mixed martial arts fight. You don't want it to be a kickboxing fight, a real mixed martial arts fight where you're taking her, you're pushing her up against the clinch, you're using the fence, you're trying to take her down, you're wearing her out. And then from there, she becomes a little bit slower. She's open for that right hand, right? When she throws that low kick, she's open for the right hand, and she loves to throw that 1-1-2 or that 1-2 combination, and that she has a really nice left hook, right? She's really good, and she'll sometimes finish her combinations with low kicks. So when she throws that low kick, it's really good timing to counter that with that right hand. We saw Joanna actually do that a couple times in their fight. But let's get into Weili a little bit because I think she has a little more ability to win this fight. I mean, she's shown versus the best version of Joanna, she's able to win that fight. And I think that's amazing. It showed how good she is. She was able to win that final round, which I think was a deciding factor, right? It was a split decision. So it was a deciding factor that she won that 5th round and she was able to put a stamp on the fight. But for Weili, I think she's going to have to really focus on trying to enter the pocket more, right? She likes to use that 1-2 combination. She has that really nice straight right. If Thug Rose throws that low kick, she can load up on that right hand. She'll actually catch his kicks a lot of times as well. And I think for her, pushing the pace, right, and getting those exchanges going is really going to benefit her because I don't think that Rose has the speed of Weili Zhang. So if she gets caught in those combination exchanges, I think it's going to be a good night. And before I make my predictions, I want to see what you think, how Weili Zhang has to get it done.
Okay, Zhang Weili, she's going to have to get inside of her punches, right? So it's pretty simple. You don't catch and you don't block. You got to slip. So Rose Namajunas, like let's say, we're gonna both fighters are gonna fight the perfect fight. Okay, the perfect fight. Rose Namajunas is gonna throw that stiff jab, right? She's gonna throw that stiff jab. Zhang Weili's gonna have to get inside of it. She can't block it. She can't catch it because if she's blocking it and she's catching it, she's fighting Thug Rose's tempo, right? She's gonna have to slip it and counter it. Slip and counter it. She's gonna have to time it. So she has to be going forward. She can't box. If she's boxing and stepping around punches and circling Thug Rose, she could lose a decision because she could get into a boxing match, which I think Thug Rose can win. So she's going to have to slip and rush. Slip, rush, combination, always off of that jab. She's going to have to time it and then bring her counter. And one of those is going to catch her. And if it catches her and it gets her into an exchange, she's going to win most of those exchanges, and one of those exchanges can end the fight.
Who do you think wins?
Zhang Weili, unfortunately, because I'm a big Thug Rose fan, I think we're going to see a good fight, by the way. I don't think she's going to run her over. But I think sometime in the 3rd round, Zhang Weili's going to slip one of those jabs. She's going to time it, hit her with a punch, and probably end it on punches. 3rd round, Zhang Weili.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going right there with you. I think Thug Rose is not as good as Joanna when it comes to this fight. I think Weili had the hardest challenge with that one. Rose does bring some different variables in this fight that she's able to use. Of course, she's a little bit more of a mixed martial artist, averaging almost 2 takedowns for every 15 minutes, and she has a takedown or two on almost all of her UFC fights. So she's shown to be able to want to take the fight and at least get on top of her a little bit. So I think that's maybe a threat for this fight. But for Zhang Weili, 100% takedown defense. She hasn't been taken down so far, right? She hasn't been taken down so far.
And the problem there is that if Thug Rose wants to take it to the mat, she's going to have to take some punches, right, to get it there. And I don't think that's a good strategy for her.
Yeah, exactly. And if she enters that pocket and Zhang puts off 2 or 3 because she has really fast hands, man. She loves to throw in the pocket. And she doesn't mind getting hit, too. That's the thing. She doesn't mind getting hit because she knows she can take some of these punches. And she took punches and shots from Joanna, so I think she can take punches from Rose. And I think she's going to be able to get it done. I love her left hook. She has a really, really beautiful left hook. And I think that's what get it done. I think that left hook clips Rose. I think that's what puts her down. Get into one of the comments real quick. He said the way Thug Rose looks like after her last win, I don't think Rose can pull it off unless submission. I agree. It was a split decision loss to Jessica Andrade, who we're going to talk about next in her fight against Valentina Shevchenko. But I think Weili has a lot better chance to win this fight. I think she gets it done by knockout. I would say second round, probably wears her out in that first round, gets the second round TKO. I'm going to say that left hook ends it. We got one more title fight to talk about. It's not even done there. We have Valentina Shevchenko, easily second best female mixed martial artist of all time, right behind the greatest of all time, right? Amanda Nunes, taking on Jessica Andrade, who's been looking phenomenal since she stepped up a weight class, and now she's showing to have a little more carrying power. Her punches have a little more pop on them, but now she's fighting a really a phenomenal striker in Valentina Shevchenko. So let's get to this one. Of the two of them, who do you think hits harder?
It's a great question, right? Man, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Valentina Shevchenko, she has more tools, let's say. So I'm gonna give her the edge that way.
Yeah, I 100% goes to Valentina, right? Yeah. But I think the power is there for Jessica Andrade. I think she's able. She has that
short hooks.
Yeah, exactly. She has those really nice short hooks. She's really good, kind of like maybe not like Weili in a way, but she's entering the pocket in a way and throwing those heavy shots. She throws punches to end the fight. So I think the power ability goes for Jessica Andrade. I think the technicality goes over to Valentina Shevchenko. But let's get into this one, because the hardest test for Valentina so far, as by far, has been Amanda Nunes. But I want to see if Jessica Andrade is able to take this fight down. Does that change what this fight becomes? Because we've seen Valentina as a great striker, and she also has, she has a little bit less on her takedown defense, 75%, which is still great. But you look at Jessica Andrade averaging 3 takedowns every 15 minutes, which is basically 1 round in a 5-round fight, right? Do you think Jessica Andrade can take this fight to the ground and get some top control?
That's how she wins, I think. I think she wins by making this fight a little uglier than what Valentina Shevchenko wants it to be. I think Valentina Shevchenko wants to look pretty out there. She wants to be bouncing, throwing punches, throwing kicks, dictating the pace of the fight, and making mincemeat of Jessica Andrade. I think Jessica Andrade wants to shoot, wants to get her down to the mat and make the fight as ugly and as physical as possible. So, yeah, that's the way she wins. And I think out of the last 3 fights, I think she has the most paths to victory out of Thug Rose and Jorge Masvidal. Because we said Thug Rose can only win a decision, boxing looking good. Jorge Masvidal can only win by knocking out Kamaru Usman. I think Jessica Andrade has a few paths to victory.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly said. I think you're absolutely right. I think she does have the ability to take her down. She doesn't mind getting into the pocket and forcing her way in, right? Her nickname is translated over for pile driver. So she doesn't mind getting in. She's like a bull. She'll grab a hold of you. She'll slam you down. She's a really physical fighter, right? And she's able to impose her will. And she even has nasty body shots. So even if she goes to the body and then she goes to the head, she might have that ability to put her down. But I think as far as taking her down, I think she's going to definitely be able to secure a couple of takedowns in this fight. I'm not sure if it's going to be all 5 rounds if she gets one. Like you said, 75% defense for Valentina Shevchenko. So her takedown defense is still pretty sound. But I think there is a pretty big path for Andrade to win this fight. But yes or no, real quick, do you think this is the toughest challenge outside of Nunes for Valentina Shevchenko?
Yes.
Okay, 100%. I think that too. But let's get to Shevchenko, because I think she's, like we said, second greatest female athlete of all time, mixed martial artist of all time. How do you think Valentina has to get it done?
Just a frustrator with volume. I think Jessica Andrade in the past has not responded too well to volume, because it's not that she tries to time it; it's that she's kind of single-minded in her attack. Like, she knows what she wants to do. So she's going to have to overwhelm her with volume. And when I mean volume, she's going to have to throw a lot of punches. She throws a lot of punches. She can frustrate Jessica Andrade and just, basically change her mind and have her fight her fight. And if she does, that's how she wins. And that's how she's won most of her fights, really.
Yeah, I think that the main thing for her is just going to be keeping the fight long, right? Just make sure you keep the fight long, keep the fight at distance, use your footwork. You have phenomenal footwork. Try to set up those kicks, but maybe don't use those high kicks as much because those are the ones that can get caught. Finish your
Yeah.
combinations with your low kicks so they can't catch it because their hands are already up defending. I think for her, just keeping the fight long, using that jab, like you said, dictating the pace of this fight, making sure that Andrade just can't get into the pocket at will, keep her outside, keep her at bay. But getting into Andrade a little bit, how do you think she has to get it done?
Well, she's going to have to be extremely aggressive, and she's going to have to essentially just, she can't get frustrated by volume. She is going to have to slip a lot of punches. She's going to have to catch a few so she can get close enough to get her takedowns. And if she's going to build a game plan from taking down Valentina Shevchenko, that's fine. Because if she does it once around and she could control her on the mat, she could probably win this decision that way. She doesn't have to finish her, but I think she can finish her as well. So that's why I'm saying that she has several paths to victory. She cannot get frustrated and start bouncing and punching with Valentina Shevchenko, because if she does that, she could get worn down. She could get knocked out herself. She'll definitely lose a decision and lose it badly if she does that. She cannot get frustrated.
Yeah, she has to continue to impose her will and make sure that she doesn't fight somebody else's fight her fight. But you sound a little more emphatic for Jessica Andrade than you do for Valentina Shevchenko. Am I sniffing that you're picking the underdog this fight?
Yes. They can't all win, right? All the champions can't retain. Although likely, come on, it's kind of likely that all three champions will retain. I think this is the best shot of the three challengers. Okay, I'm a huge Jorge fan. I'm a huge Thug Rose fan, but I recognize what they're up against. I think they're up against it this Saturday. I think Jessica Andrade has a real shot, and I think she's value. I think she has, like I said, those two paths to victory, and I think if she shoots and can get some takedowns, she gets one around, it's a wrap, and I think she wins the decision.
And all she needs is to get him for 3 rounds. You don't need to get him all 5, right? Get him 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, now they start thinking about the takedown. Their hands tend to drop. And then she has that hook. So it just works out perfectly. I'm rocking there right there with you. I think Jessica Andrade has a pretty good path to victory in this fight. I think I'm having some PTSD with all these grapplers beating strikers. So I'm thinking Andrade in this fight as well. I think she's going to be able to take this fight to the ground. I think she's going to be able to enter the pocket. I think it's going to be a decision win. I think Andrade is going to take it 3-2. I think Shevchenko has her moments, maybe even hurts Andrade, but I think Andrade stays strong. I think the lack of a weight cut, right, being able to move up in that weight class will help her and will help her power. And I think she gets it done. But there's still a little bit more on this card is left. There's still a couple other good fights, and I want to just get to some quick picks to finish off this main card here. Let's get to this next fight because this is a pretty fun fight, right? It's two guys still maybe on the back end of their career, but still fun, big name, decent sized names. Former champion Chris Weidman taking on Uriah Hall. How do you see that one going down?
Well, Uriah Hall beat Anderson Silva last time out, but he's on a 3-fight win streak, right? Last time we saw Chris Weidman, he was winning somebody. I don't know who Omari Akamena. I don't know who that is. Okay, but he lost 5 out of his last 6, and he's looked bad in some of them. I don't know. I think Chris Weidman has that look of the guy that could be on the way out, but Uriah Hall is a guy that never made his way in. Okay, so it's it's a tough fight. Like, let's give a lot of credit to UFC fight matchmakers. I heard the guy's name. There's a guy who's the chief matchmaker. For the next show, I'll have the guy's name because Dana White was saying that he's the best guy in the business, and I think the Fertitta brothers were the ones who hired the guy. I forgot the guy's name. He did a fabulous job because I don't have the foggiest idea who wins this fight because they're kind of essentially the same guy. Chris Weidman, the better career, but probably on the way out. Uriah Hall, older. I don't know, not as good, but probably in better shape right now, more fit. Flip a coin and flip it again, and then maybe Uriah Hall wins 2 out of the 3, and I take Uriah Hall just because maybe.
Yeah, I think that chin of Chris Weidman isn't there anymore. I think, we've seen that he's just not able to take those shots anymore. I think Uriah Hall still has that power. He still has that power, especially being in a decently higher weight class. He aged a little more gracefully with the power in those weight classes. So I think he still has the power to get it done. So I think I'm right there with you, man. I think he gets it done. Let's get to this one as well. We're gonna just finish this off real quick. Jimmy Crute versus Anthony Smith. Real quick, who do you think gets it done?
Jimmy Crute, Anthony Smith should not be fighting anymore, and I don't know why he's on this card.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely on the back end of his career. 50, I think he's going on to 51 pro fights now. So, I mean, he's he's taking a little bit of extra damage, a little more than you want him to do right now. But yeah, man, great card. Really fun to watch out for. It's going to be a phenomenal night. A lot of great fights. A couple of fun events coming up too, right? PFL, Professional Fighting League. It's going to be on ESPN Plus and ESPN2. Anthony Pettis is going to be over there. He's fighting over at PFL now. So check that out on Friday night. And then we also have Bellator that's going to be this Friday as well. A continuation of that light heavyweight tournament that's going to continue as well. Is there any boxing upcoming events that we should look out for?
Absolutely, and it works out perfectly for combat sports fans everywhere. On Saturday night, you're going to watch this fight, right? You're going to watch it on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, right? Guess what's on right before it? Boxing from Kissimmee, Florida, okay? Also on ESPN Plus. Emmanuel Navarrete is going to defend his title against Christopher Diaz. That's not what we're watching this card for. We're watching this card for Edgar Berlanga, who fights in the co-main event. Jonathan, let me ask you a question. Edgar Berlanga, he's 16-0 with 16 knockouts. How many of those 16 knockouts were past the first round?
None.
It's 16 fights, 16 knockouts, 16 knockouts in the first round. He's an absolute superstar. I understand they have a championship fight headlining that card right before we get to go to the octagon, but that's the star of the show, Edgar Berlanga. You want to watch him. Super middleweight. You know who's a super middleweight? 168, Canelo. Edgar Berlanga, superstar. Let's see if he makes it 17 for 17 first-round knockouts.
That's impressive regardless of competition. That's just really impressive. But a lot of great combat coming up this weekend. Like you said, PFL, Bellator, of course, UFC 261, the main attraction. We got some boxing prospects to look out for as well. But as always, thank you guys for checking out Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thank you, Alf. Thank you, Mr. Super Producer Manny. I'm Jonathan, Mr. Three-Piece Combo, and I hope you guys have a great day. All right, Manny. I think he's busy. Have a good day, guys. Enjoy the fight.